Hey there, Planet Poke people, it's me, DioGenZ, and welcome to another episode of my Pokemon Conquest walkthrough. Today, it's all about training. That's why these screens are enhanced and expanded full screen in size. Kind of ironic when you think I am a full screen partner, but with that said, we're going to be talking about connectivity in games today, and how it really has transformed what type of a gamer I am, and what I used to be. Mainly, I was a hardcore Nintendo fan back then. I only had Nintendo systems, and it wasn't for a lack of looking at the other companies. It's just a matter of money, people. It's far easier to buy a set of games for one console than it is all three, or even just two of them. So, for the longest time, I only had Nintendo, and I only knew that sort of connectivity, which was very minimal back then. And it's funny because I think about games like Animal Crossing and how they thought they were doing something really amazing because you could chat with people and chat with these virtual sim-like creatures. Personally, I've never been any sim fan myself, but I don't know, people apparently liked the entire Animal Crossing phase. It missed me. I didn't play it on the GameCube. That's when it was really big. But the big part of it was that you could bring your memory cards back and forth to your friend's place. And the biggest game on GameCube that I did not miss, and was probably my favorite game of all time there, was Melee! And that, of course, involved your friends. Every time that you would get together, you'd have a Melee mashup. And it would be great and never end in anything being solved as who's the better Melee player. It would always end in just, oh yeah, I'll get you next time. Arguments like that. But it all comes down to connectivity. It's what's really shaping gaming today. If it doesn't have the features to find your friends or talk to people that you know who have the game as well, it could sometimes turn people away from it. I know that certainly that's what's changing my views on games today, is Steam. That's what's making the difference. Nintendo, they're getting a lot better in their connectivity, don't get me wrong. I mean, as soon as they came out with the 4th generation of Pokemon games on DS, and we got Wi-Fi, the global trading system, that was phenomenal, and that really shifted the game. That made your experience, no matter where you were, seem more globally important, really gave you an idea of how many other Pokemon players there was out there, and allows you to reach them, maybe not directly, maybe not to have conversations like you would on Skype, but even then, you have Skype. So, you know, you can't really compete with that. You have Skype if you want to really talk to somebody face to face. You have Wi-Fi, and now with Black 2 and White 2 taking it to the next level, which I was bummed that they kind of omitted that feature in Diamond and Pearl. I think that was a cautious security reason for Nintendo not to do that. They've always been hypersensitive to the younger audiences, and not even talking to casual core, but younger audience and security, and making sure that none of that's violated. So they wanted to make sure, maybe they can't find random people online. But it would have worked out fine if they didn't enable the microphone, which they do now in Black 2 and White 2. Kind of a mystery when you think of it, why they omit such a feature, but then when you look at that Wii release that came out, Battle Revolution, that was kind of the only catch of that game, why you'd want to pick that up, even though it was very bare bones and not many features to it, was because you could verse people without needing their friend codes. So, as a business standpoint, it makes sense. But now, Animal Crossing, you know, the Wii version of that, I forget, what is it, City Folk? That really didn't move many units at all. And it's not surprising. There's very few people now who have held on to their Wii. They've either moved on to 360 or they're on Steam. Now 360, I have a 360. It's a resurrected red ringed one. It's got the old penny trick on it, and it's working perfectly actually. So if anybody wants to open up their dead 360 and replace the heat sinks and then overheat it, well, not overheat it, but let it run so that it can get past all the red ring process, then you might want to look up some tutorial guides, because it actually worked out for me. I never went and got Xbox 360 Gold because, coming from Nintendo Wi-Fi, you know, Nintendo had its shining moments in Wi-Fi, and you see it more or less in the portable side of things, and I'm going to be talking about Black 2 and White 2 and how they are also changing up the game in connectivity, but back in the day of Metroid Prime Hunters, that was the perfect title. It integrated voice chat. It didn't have it during the matches, but that was fine because each player needed to focus on wailing at one another with their collective arm cannons. And once you were on the menu screen choosing what match you wanted to be on, you could have a conversation with who you were playing with. Plus, you could find random people to verse as well. When that was at its heightened area of playability, when there was the most people online, that was one of the best games online I've experienced from Nintendo, and I haven't seen many things since besides Pokemon. Perhaps I'm missing out on them. I've heard that Mario Kart Wii holds up much better than Brawl, but it's a matter of finding people to verse that are actually a challenge that sometimes becomes difficult with Mario Kart Wii. 3DS definitely fixes that with the newest Mario Kart. I suppose with the kart titles, you gotta somewhat stay frequent in the generation, because if you go to the Mario Kart DS original, I doubt there's anybody on Wi-Fi besides snakers and spammers who jump over the Sky Road level. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, it's that level with the clouds up in the air, and some people have these ways, these hacks, maybe action replays attached to their game that allow them to hover directly to the goal. So that's cheap. But things are getting even more connective, and Nintendo has to compete. They definitely do. They can't look at things such as the iPads and iPods and maybe even smartphones. They can't look at those and balk at them, because what they lack in gaming hardware, what they lack in the ability to make a super nice streamlined game like something you'd see on the DS, like a really deep intrinsic RPG or something that has great graphics. You know, not saying DS has the best graphics, but it has done some impressive things here and there with 3D engines. And hey, isn't Okami Den on DS? And that is a beautiful looking game, so you can't really convince me that you can't do beautiful things on DS. But for what it lacks in the connectivity, rather, what it lacks in the graphics, the droids and iPods and iPads of the world, they make up for in connectivity. Almost all the apps are interconnected to Facebook. It's almost all of the times integrated into what you're really doing, so it shows people, oh, this person's playing this game here, this person likes this app, and you should check it out yourself. So everybody is constantly seeing how everybody is gaming always. And for Nintendo, I was actually having higher hopes with the 3DS and Street Pass and Spot Pass, thinking that it would make a more inclusive system that would make you feel like you're a part of a Nintendo network. With Wii, it was very disjointed. It was very hollow experience. I remember there being no one ever to trade Metroid Prime 3 coupons with, and barely anybody. I think they only stayed on for the first few weeks to play Wii Sports and then return their Wiis. So, you know, there was very few people to verse on Wii. And when it was there, sometimes it was not the best quality. Like Brawl, everybody knows, after all of the delays that that game had, it still didn't manage to compete with any type of online experience that could be delivered by 360 or PS3, and especially souped-up PCs, which I finally got. It's actually a laptop that is pretty high on specs, so that is fantastic because it is portable but very playable. So, with Nintendo, I thought that maybe the 3DS would bring in a more Nintendo-like community. Something that we had like back on the forum days before Nintendo Power completely got disbanded. I've heard that the company that took over Nintendo Power is actually going out too, so there's not even going to be such a thing as Nintendo Power anymore. Kind of sad, but who knows? Maybe it will move on to the digital realm. Hopefully the Wii U provides kind of connectivity boosts and nodes, making it more useful to have a 3DS, because right now, if you're a 3DS owner, at least this is the way I feel with mine, it seems as though Nintendo's just trying to cash in on more pointless peripherals like the extra circle pad and new 3DS iterations like the 3DS XL far too early just to coax people who are uncertain about it to get in. And I suppose that is somewhat of a necessary thing since they didn't move as many units as they thought they were going to. I can't exactly get that ideal Street Pass connectivity that I'm searching for if nobody else has the system. And, you know, that's the situation. That's why Nintendo has to be wary. A lot more people have iPods. Everybody pretty much has Facebook. And those apps, albeit very simple apps, do connect and consume lots of time of people. Even something as simple as Words with Friends. I mean, that has become somewhat of a phenomenon. It's everywhere, and people play it for hours and hours collectively at a time. I mean, you know, not all at once like we grind here in Pokemon to gain training experience like we might for Conquest or the main RPGs, but overall, awesome! Mighty Machoke with a cross chop. That is killer, I'm sure. But, you know, it takes tons and tons of time from people because they feel like they're a part of something. They feel, oh, look at this, my friend is playing this game, so I too should play this game. And that's why a big part of my gaming time is dedicated towards Steam now, because they have that connectivity. Everybody, you know, who has a computer, it's pretty much assumed, or it's compensated for within Steam servers, unlike it was with Wii, where if somebody had a bad internet connection, it screwed the whole entire match of Brawl, or whatever you were happening to be playing on Wii. But with Steam, it's pretty much assumed. You're going to have a computer that can take whatever game you're playing. And when you find a group of those people, and it's worldwide now, and everybody who has a computer and has a fancy of that game you're looking towards, it's a great experience. Plus, you can meet people. I've met so many of the people who watch me on my channel. I've met them all a lot through Steam. And if you guys listening to me here play Conquest want to add me on Steam so we could go through Dead Island, maybe some Team Fortress, who knows what other multiplayer games I have. I think I have one indie game called Metal Drift. Metal Drift! I don't know exactly what kind of game it is. Haven't played it yet. Something I got during a gigantic indie bundle sale. But, yeah, I think that's also multiplayer, so we could play that. Just add me on Steam as DeoGenZ. That's DeoGenZ. So it's coming down to that. It's coming down to the places that are of greater connectivity. I'm not rushing out to get a Wii U. I'm waiting to see what Nintendo is going to do. I want them to really improve their network. And it's interesting. You know, I can't fault them completely, or I'm not even faulting them, really just analyzing them and seeing where my progression has been personally, moving from a system or just one company to where I experienced during the summer months a gaming drought of sorts, to now over the summer with Steam I have over gaming surplus, you know, big in part due to the Super Steam summer sales. Wow, try saying that 5 times fast. Thanks in part to that, but also majorly because all my friends I converse on Steam. And there's so many great titles that I wasn't aware of that Steam also brings into the limelight. I thought that Wii was going to do that with WiiWare, and they did to a certain extent, with programmers like Alex Noisy doing BitTrip, but even he moved eventually onto Steam, because that's where he found a larger audience, a grander scale of people to play his games, talk about them, and share. Indie games get around well on PC, much better than the consoles, because you don't need to buy expensive kits. If you have a computer, you have a passion to play games and also design games, there's a good chance you could be on Steam. Oh, and there's also this new green light thing that's going on with Steam that allows for the players to vote and choose what upcoming indie games that are out there, not yet on the market majorly through Steam, which ones will be placed on the Steam network for people to download and buy. It is awesome. So it's really up to the players. Anything that looks excellent, anything that has a infamous excellency to it, it will spread around faster, and then people can have access to playing it. There's never been such a swift process of getting a game to the player before, but Steam and the PC really does that. So, you know, I like what Wii U does with their gaming help system. It's an interesting concept. It is very interesting coming from Nintendo, because they're always, like I said, so ever so safe, trying to keep and protect all their users any way they can. So it's weird to think that they would use a service that seems somewhat similar to Chat Roulette, except for gaming advice, and expect for it to go all well. Well, you know, I'll have hope and expect the best for them. I don't want to assume anything until it happens, but you know, Google, it's pretty good. It's great at answering any gaming questions. I just don't know how some random person, some random old dude on Wii U, who is going to be in my controller, is going to help me more than some walkthrough similar to what I'm doing here, but for another game that I'm stuck in. I think that YouTube and Google overall, it's really revolutionized how guides go. I hardly ever buy books of strategy guides. It's all digital now. I just save and favorite playlists of my favorite walkthroughs, the best ones that are the most helpful, and then I head back to them whenever I play them in my own world, in my own game. So, it's interesting. I'd like to know, how has connectivity changed for you over these past few years? I mean, I grew up in the 2000s, coming up in gaming, so there is a generation of gamers before me, the retro gamers of the 80s, and they didn't have such connectivity. This is a new generation, a new era of people coming together to play. And what we're starting to see is that when play is made accessible to everyone, even through rudimentary methods like Facebook apps, everybody really wants to play video games. Everybody wants to have fun. Everybody wants to have a good time. It's just a matter of finding the game that's your experience that you want to try. Maybe Pong wasn't for everyone. Maybe Caterpillar was not so captivating to you. But for sure you could find something on Steam, and if you're not even a major gamer, you might indeed like something on the Android App Store or iOS-based areas, not eras. But yes, how has it changed for you in these past years? I started out on Game Boy Advanced. When DS came out, that was pretty revolutionary. It's easy to forget the progress we've come to make so far, but it has been massive. I remember some of the betas, if you will, of connectivity for Nintendo was appearing around the time of Leaf Green and Fire Red, a case where Pokemon pushed for further innovation at Nintendo. I remember reading a interview about that with, I think, Iwata and one of the creators, one of the developers of Pokemon, saying that it was so amazing playing without any cables and having about 7 people in the office linked up wirelessly for the first time, because they had those wireless adapters that would plug right into the space of where the link cable would go. So now you could start to move around with your consoles. And I remember in high school, around the time of Pokemon Diamond, because that was, I think Pokemon Diamond was coming out when I was a freshman, and all the time during class, which is probably why I did so horrible in high school, I was too busy trading Pokemon under the table and doing Metroid Prime Hunter matches, but it was great. You could just go from one spot to the other. If anybody looked over at you, it was easily closed and looked like a mini book, the Nintendo DS, so nobody really questioned it. And you could set up your trades, and even then just put it in sleep mode, and eventually you'd get the Pokemon when you were within the same room with the person. So connectivity has really shaped the way that games are going these days, and it has made me overall a much more hardcore fan of games. It just keeps getting better and better all the time, the more that we meet in cyberspace and play with one another. So I do want to know, leave a comment below. And also remember, since this is about the time I'm going to do for training, I believe it is time to move on to further kingdom takeovers. But do check out my channel. I do other walkthroughs. I do more than just Pokemon. There is currently some Saints Row footage that will be going up soon, and also Minecraft by my friend Vladimir that goes on there. And remember to subscribe to Planet Poke, and most importantly, for further Pokemon content such as this and others. See ya next time.